I think that's good. Yeah. I'm not really sure what to say, but I mean, I guess this is just me laying down the first brick. Yeah. I guess I'm just gonna talk and then just kind of like see what makes sense, and then I could just clip it out later. So I'm not too worried about that. All right. So I guess I'm gonna just kind of treat this as like a Netflix documentary series, because that's really what it is. Yeah, like I know it's probably gonna be not the best at first, but I do like I truly in my heart I do believe that all of these things happening to me is for a greater purpose, and it would be a disservice to the world, if I didn't use this adversity and turn it into something that could benefit other people rather than just myself. That was the word right there. Like I didn't come up with that. That was fire. But yeah, so like that's the reason why I'm laying down this first brick. Because before this, I was on social media, whatever, and was successful, but I don't know, I didn't really feel like a whole lot of fulfillment when I was doing social media. And it's like, I don't know, what was I doing it for, really? I think it was like an ego thing. Like I wanted to be seen, I wanted to feel important, whatever, like status, whatever. I think, everyone to some degree wants that. But I think deep down, that's like what my mission was when I was doing social media. And I don't know, like I just always felt like there was something missing, and I just needed to like push past it. And yeah, but I just always knew in the back of my mind that, like, I don't know, there's just something off. Like there's just something. And yeah, it's just something off. And I'm like, maybe, like I had a lot of limiting beliefs and doubts, or, just like being self-conscious about myself, and just my presence on social media, just because I would always stack myself up against like whoever is popping. And like it's hard to not compare yourself to the best when you want to be the best, and then you just go down like this rabbit hole and like never ending vicious cycle of never feeling good enough, and then you never feel good enough, and then you feel good enough, and then once you get the motivation to start, and then you procrastinate, and then you procrastinate, and then a day goes into 2 days, 2 days goes into a week, and then 2 weeks goes into 6 months, and it's just like this never ending vicious cycle of self-sabotaging. For what? And that's been my biggest struggle, like my whole life. But there was a time in my life where things actually made sense. And I think back to, like when I think back to like when the best parts of my life were. And it was when I was 14, and I stayed with my dad for a summer, because my parents were split, and my mom had full custody. And during that time in my life, I just really needed like a parental, fatherly figure, and I just didn't have like that that fatherly figure in my life, like consistent enough to actually like help me develop into a man. I'm not saying that like you need a father or parental figure to develop into a man, but that's what I really needed at the time because, just like a little short story. When I when I was going from elementary school to middle school, there wasn't a whole lot of like good middle schools in my area. Like the middle schools, like kids were getting stabbed, girls are getting pregnant, and like it was just not good. So my parents made a decision to put me into like more of a private school that was like like kind of like a 35 to 45 minute drive, 35 to 45 minute drive from where I lived, to put me into like to basically like set me up for success, which is like I see that's what they were doing, because I understand that they put me in a school that they didn't want me to like be around like bad influences and things like that. I understand why they did that, but ultimately like my whole middle school sucked, bro. Like I'm just like speaking from the heart at this point, and I don't know, like some people from middle school might see this, and I don't know, like you guys just never really knew what it was like, because everyone, I would say like 90% of middle school, or I would say that like going into sixth grade, I would say 90% of the kids that were entering middle school already knew each other, like from kindergarten, elementary, whatever. So like they already had their like established group of friends and cliques and whatever. Then there's me. I come in, I don't know anyone, and what really kind of hindered my my ability to make friends was because like I'm just saying it like flat out that that school is like very, very preppy, and like status was a big thing, like like who you knew, the people who you hung out with, or like if you like let's just say like if someone doesn't like you, then that means all their other friends don't like you either, whatever. Like it was just so dumb. So like I always like had a hard time making friends because I never really like fit into like a certain group of friends, because like I wasn't like them. That's the best way I could describe it. Like my whole life I've always kind of felt like the black sheep, not like in a rebellious way, but in a way where like I don't know, I just feel like I'm always going against the grain, and maybe that was me attracting that life, maybe because I had that mindset, maybe that's why I didn't fit in, whatever. Like if you think you're not going to fit in, then you're not going to fit in, whatever. But like there's no guide on how to live life when you're like 14. So I'm just like predicting maybe that's what was going on. But with that being said, like making friends was hard. Whenever I did make friends, I don't know, it was very like superficial, and I never really had like a good group of friends and people that I could hang out with. And whenever I did hang out with them, like it was about like what can you give me, or like what's in it for me, or like I don't know. Everyone was just like very about themselves, and I used to get bullied because like I'm not gonna lie, I'm just speaking raw truth, whatever. Like I'm just surrendering right now. Like I'm being completely vulnerable. Like when I was like 12 or like 13, all my parents fed me was fast food, because my mom has MS and she can only work a part-time job because her if she worked full time, then she wouldn't get the benefits of like disability, whatever. And then so she she always had like a part time job, you know, and she was basically like a single mom. And so whenever I was hungry, whatever, like I don't know, she wasn't like she she did her best with what she could, because I don't know if you guys are familiar with like multiple sclerosis, but like she's basically handicapped, and she's not able to be like a super mom, and like do what regular moms do. So, but I was like 14, and that was just like, that was my world, so I guess like going back to the whole food situation is, like, I don't know, the cabinets were never filled with food. Like they were always empty. And like, I just remember all the time, like just being so hungry, bro. Like so hungry. And then whenever we did get food, we bought what was cheapest. And so, the cabinets weren't full, but when they did have food in them, it was all junk food, because that's what we could afford. And like, that's not my fault. That's not my fault that, like whenever I reach into the cupboards, it's only like, like junk food or whatever, or chips, it's not my fault. But that like translated into like me being kind of chunky. I wasn't fat, I didn't have like like a belly or anything. I was kind of like chubby, like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen iCarly, but kind of like not as fat as Gibby, but like, I don't know, just a little chunky, like just a little fluffy. That's such a funny analogy, bro. But yeah, so that was my physique in middle school, leading up until like 7th grade, because like during that time I used to get bullied a lot because of my weight and because of my appearance. And like everyone that went to that middle school, I guarantee their parents were making over like 6 figures, and my mom was only making like, she was making like less than $29,000 a year. I remember asking my mom, I was like, we're in the car one day, I was like, Mom, how much do you make a year? And she's like, she's like very hesitant. And then like, I never really knew, like 14 years old, you don't know like what the average adult makes, whatever. But like, I asked her how much she makes a year, and she's like between like 29 and like 30,000. And I was like, that seems low. But I didn't like really know anything. But like, with that being said, as you can imagine where I'm going with this, a single mother trying to provide for a kid, like doing her best, and then also like putting clothes on his back, she did the best that she could, so like, I'm not saying that like I got clothes from like Walmart or anything, but like most of my clothes, like they didn't add up. They weren't as good as the clothes that the people I was like going to middle school with, and they made that known. And it's just like, it's just very obvious when you're the odd one out. It's just very, very, very obvious. And that's how I was treated, like no matter like what I did, there's just like this narrative, whatever, it's just like, I don't know, that's just how it always was. Like, I made like a few good friends here and there, like don't get me wrong, I had some fun, like towards the end of my middle school, I don't know, towards the end of middle school, but getting off track. So what was I gonna say? Okay, so given that I was chubby and I was being fed all of these negative like lies and, you know, hateful comments about myself, my physique and my appearance, you know, just like basically like my worth. I was a very insecure kid, you know, because that's all I knew. That's what was being put in front of me. And I do blame it all on, you know, like the way people treated me in middle school. But then, you know, like I knew something had to change. And I didn't know like what I needed to do to change this narrative about, you know, like the way people see me and how people treat me or whatever. Like I knew there had to be something done, because like I just couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't take it. And so I was like, okay, if I'm fat, then I'm just gonna not be fat. And what I did is I became very anorexic. So like I went from, you know, like kind of like cute chunky to like skin and bones. Skin and bones. And mind you, like whenever I did eat, it was like junk food too. So it's like I didn't have like solid muscle. You know, I was like skinny, but I didn't have like muscle, and it just like was not a good physique. But like I just didn't want to eat. Like I'd much rather starve than be called, you know, like all of those names or whatever. And even when I did lose the weight, like even like I still got picked on, whatever. Because that's just how they saw me. That was their narrative about me. Like I couldn't do anything about it. So then I was like, you know, I can't be anorexic my whole life, you know? And so again, I decided that something needed to change. Something needed to change, and I didn't know what that was. And so I decided that I think that I need to switch up my environment. And the way that I did that was like my dad was a weekend dad, and he didn't have full custody. But in order for me to get out of my environment, I felt like I needed to go live with my dad for a little bit. Because when I was living with my mom, like I was just like life was just not going good. So I literally begged my mom to go stay with my dad for a summer, and she was like very hesitant, whatever, you know, like my parents never really got along, and like I finally convinced her to just like let me stay with him. And dude, that was like one of the best summers of my entire life. I was like transitioning into like 13 going into 14, and dude, it was so amazing, bro, because like I remember when I was growing up, my dad lived in a place called Palomino Park, and it was like this huge like gated community and like little subdivisions in it. And then like whenever I showed up, whenever you'd go outside, you know, it was like a cool little community. Like everyone's like really friendly, and you know, like people walking around with their dogs, and you know, they have a clubhouse and whatever, a pool. So yeah, like the environment alone, you know, like instantly increased my confidence. But then also like I remember when I first started staying with my dad, me and him would go play, we'd go out to the volleyball nets and go play some volleyball. And my dad was like semi-pro volleyball player, and I was pretty good at volleyball too. But then I remember my dad and me playing volleyball, and then there's like these two girls that came to play volleyball too, and they're like literally the same age as me, and they're like playing like I don't know like 25 yards away from us, whatever. And I was like, or my dad was like, hey, we should ask them to play. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. And like, I have like zero riz at like 12 or 13, 14. Like I do not know how to talk to girls, whatever. So, my dad, was like, hey, do you guys want to volley or pepper? And that's like a term for, you know, just like passing the ball back and forth and just like hitting whatever, just like all around. So then they're like, yeah, sure. And then, I ended up having like a really good experience, and I'm not gonna lie, like these girls are hot, and like we're all having fun, we're all laughing, like we're like missing the ball, making mistakes. And I don't know, like it was just really cool to have that experience, you know, like with my dad and like these two hot girls, and we're like having fun. And I'm like, I've never experienced this in my life. I've never experienced, like, I never knew like life could be so fruitful like this. And then afterwards, you know, like when we got done playing volleyball, you know, like we obviously like me and the girls, like we introduced each other at first, but they're like, after we were playing volleyball, my dad was like, I'm gonna go home. He's like, I'm gonna walk home. You know, like it was only like 100 yards away from the volleyball court, and I ended up staying at the volleyball courts with those two girls, and continued playing volleyball with them. And I think we played until like till it got dark. Like we're having so much fun, and I had not a worry in the world. Like I was genuinely having fun. But then like at the end of the night, whatever, you know, like we got each other's social media phone numbers, and then like I don't know, everything changed. Like everything changed ever since then, because when I was living in Palomino, no one knew me, you know, besides those two girls, whatever. Like no one knew who I was. They didn't know, you know, the middle school I was going to. They didn't know my mom. They didn't know my situation or like how I grew up, whatever. Like no one knew me. The only thing that people knew was what they saw. So I saw that as an opportunity to completely like unfuck my life. And that's what I ultimately did. You know, like I always knew that like this narrative that these kids at middle school, that this narrative in middle school that these kids had about me, like that was false. That was almost like the devil in disguise. And I just always knew that like that's not the truth. And I'm like, I don't know what the truth is, but I know it's not that. Like I know I'm a lot more worth than that. And so that's where, you know, like living in Palomino, that's where the flip script, or that's where the script flipped. Because like I said, no one knew who I was, and I had this opportunity to basically become whoever I wanted to be. And next thing you know, like the girls were introducing me to their friends and their friends and their friends. And like at one point, I'm not gonna lie, like I was pretty popular. Like I was like the new kid on the block, and I was like getting invited to everything. And, you know, like me and my friends were like sneaking out and, you know, like going to like, I don't know, just like going, like doing dumb shit, whatever. And like, it was just a good time. And that really showed me that like I can be accepted into a community. Like people do like me, and people do want to hang out with me. Like it was just my environment in middle school that was just like completely just destroying me. So with that being said, that's like, you know, like part of, you know, like building some self-confidence. But then the other part was, you know, like, okay, we need to do something about this physique. Like this is just not going to cut it. So I told my dad what was going on, and he's like, oh, I never really knew that. Like I don't know. Like I never told anyone what was going on, you know, with like what I was doing with my body. And I never really asked for help. But then like the first day that I moved in with my dad, I was like, I just laid it all out on the table, and I was like, dude, you're jacked. Like you're athletic as fuck. And I want you to basically turn me into somebody, because I didn't know how. You know, I needed the guidance, and like I couldn't stand going any longer just living in this body that was just being self-deprecated like for, you know, like years. Like I couldn't handle it anymore. So then my dad was like, okay, you know, like let's start out by waking up at 4 a.m. and we started going to Lifetime Fitness at 4 a.m. like every morning. And I kid you not that like we did not miss a day, bro. Like we did not miss a day. But during that time, he was like teaching me like how to work out, he was teaching me how to work out and just basically like live, I don't know, like how to work out, how to get stronger, how to eat better, whatever. And, just like really introduced me to the gym, which saved me. Like, if it wasn't for my dad introducing me to the gym, I don't know where I'd be today. And I'm very thankful for that, because the gym has shaped me, and like during those years has shaped me into the man that I am today. So I'm very grateful for that. But what the gym basically did for me was it gave me an escape and an opportunity to become whoever I wanted to be, like physically. Like in sports, when you're on a team, you have to rely on other people, for results. And with bodybuilding, it's like it's only you. It's only you in that arena, and how far you want to go is determined on you. Like you have full control over how far you want to take it. And I wanted it bad, bro. Like I wanted to see change so bad that like I was willing to do whatever it took to flip the script and change this narrative about, like what I was going through in middle school. Like I was willing to do whatever it took. I don't care. Like I will die for this shit, bro. And that's why I did. Like I don't know, like I used to be like anxious or whatever, and like cared like what people thought about me. But then once I started going to the gym, like all of those negative thoughts and fears, like they weren't strong enough to prevent me from reaching my goals. Like I was hurting so bad to a point where I'd much rather die than keep living the way that I was living. So that's what was fueling everything. It's kind of sad, but like, like when I was going to the gym, I wasn't thinking about like, oh, what are people thinking about me, whatever. I'm like, dude, I'm like, I was like literally like on Adderall without being on Adderall. Like I was just so tunnel visioned and like a freight train. Like you could not stop me. Whatever you put in front of me, I don't care. You could not stop me. Because I wanted it that bad. I was so obsessed. And the reason why I was so obsessed was because like I knew that like that was the only way. Like there's no shortcuts. There's nothing else really that would get me out of that hole. And so I was willing to do whatever it took. So yeah. And then like every rep that I did, I just saw, I'm like, hey, this stuff works, and I'm not gonna lie, like I got some pretty good gains when my dad introduced me to the gym, and I was like, for once in my life, I'm actually good at something. I think I gained like 30 pounds in one summer. Not all of it was like muscle, but most of it was muscle. And I went from, like being chubby to anorexic to like the most jacked kid in any friend group. And that felt really good. I'm not gonna lie. Like, because then the attention that I was getting was positive. It was always positive. And I made like a promise to myself that I'm like, I'm never gonna go back to the old me. Like I'm never gonna allow people or life to treat me that way. And the only way I'm gonna do that is by taking full control over my own life. So I made a vow to myself, I'm like, I'm never gonna let that happen again. And that's why the gym is such an important thing to me, because that is what ultimately like saved my life. And that's why people respected me. But then like, yeah, that just transitioned into my adult life. And then I went through, I don't know, a pretty bad breakup when I was like 19. And then I decided to move to Florida, and stay with John Daly, who was a mentor for Jeff's side. I stayed there for a couple months, was planning to do Swim Week Miami, ended up not doing it, even though I had a great physique, whatever. And I was like collabing with all these athletes. I didn't think I was ready. And I had all this opportunity in front of me, and I just I just thought I could do better. And instead of like seizing the moment and taking advantage of my stay in Florida, I decided like I'm gonna come back to Colorado and just really like, you know, kick it in high gear, keep my head down, and just go all out. So that way I can be prepared for when I go back out to Florida or Miami, because I want to be the best. You know, like if I do something, I'm not gonna do it to be second place. Like if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it the best that anyone's ever did it. Best believe that. Like if I pursue a goal, whatever, like I'm gonna win. That was my mindset. And at the time, I felt like I wasn't ready. So then I came back to Colorado and then ended up getting into like the wrong group of people, worked in the oil field and just like basically was just like so focused on just surviving and, you know, trying to make money. And then COVID hit and then whatever. And now it's just like, I lost that spark. Because like when I came back to Colorado when I was 19, I was like, okay, I'm really gonna just make sure that this works out when I go back. And that just completely did a 180 on me, like did the total opposite. Like just everything that I thought was gonna happen didn't happen. So there's always been this void in my soul and my heart and just my character that just was never filled. And I knew I had to fill that, and I owe it to myself, you know, like because I look at, you know, like what I've been through and how far I've come, that I literally owe it to myself. I literally owe it to myself to be the person that I want to be. That's really it. Like it's not like a putting myself on a pedestal or like an ego thing. Like I literally deserve it. Everyone in life deserves to be happy. Everyone in life deserves to achieve their dreams, goals, and desires. Like everyone deserves that. So yeah, with that being said, like, I don't know, I'm just laying down the foundation right now. I'm putting in the work that I should have put in 6 years ago. I'm laying down the first brick. And that's what I'm just going to keep focusing on, is instead of trying to build the wall all in one day, I just need to focus on just laying down the brick one day at a time. And that's going to be the ultimate goal. So, yeah. So I guess this was kind of like an introductory video to, you know, like childhood and growing up, and, you know, like why I got into the gym. I guess this is a good video for that. Maybe that's like, you know, well, I'll make the title whatever, because like in consensus, you know, like we basically just talked about, you know, like my upbringing and, you know, like why I was anorexic, why I became chubby, why I was bullied, why I got into the gym, and then, you know, why I decided to pursue fitness in the first place, and then why I fell off, and then why I feel the need to fill that void. So yeah, that's basically this video all summarized up. But there's a lot more to my story than this, because I can't walk right now. I'm basically paralyzed, and I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what the future holds, but yeah, there's a lot more to my story than just this video. So I'm gonna just try and stay consistent and just kind of, I don't know, just stay consistent. Like I'm not gonna try to be perfect, because I know if I like just plant the seeds and just put it out there, that I trust that God will bring things into my life that are meant to be. So that's really it. So if you stayed to watch that whole entire video, I appreciate you more than words can imagine. Like I know you don't know me, and I appreciate you hearing my story. And I hope that as you continue watching me, that you gain some type of benefit or value, or just like even motivation, while I'm going through these trials and tribulations, and as I share what I've gone through, and then ultimately watch me evolve as a person. Like I genuinely, like, not a self-centered thing. Like I genuinely hope that you guys are motivated by watching me succeed. Like I don't want to succeed, to get like a big house, whatever. And, like, I don't know, just for status, whatever. Like I want to succeed to give other people motivation to do the same thing. That's really all it is. Like and I also feel like I owe it to myself to see like how far I can take this, because, like, anything's possible. And if anyone out there is going through something similar to what I went through as a kid, then they definitely need to hear this and the messages and lessons that I'm going to be sharing and experiencing on this journey. And I would be doing a disservice if I wasn't recording everything and documenting everything. Like I would just live the rest of my life with so much regret. So I'm kind of over the fear of being judged or like worrying about what people think, because like it's not worth it to not try anymore. Like I've already lived a life of not trying, and look where it's got me. And like, mind you, I'm not like where I want to be. So it's time to live a life where I say, or I do the things I say I'm going to do, and put in the work, and, just grind when no one's watching, and actually be the person who I want to become. That's this chapter in my life, because I did it when I was 14 and it completely changed my life, and I can